Hello and welcome back. If you aren't cheating, then you aren't trying is a phrase that has been said on the challenge at various different points. Since the inception of the challenge, players have tried to complete tasks as quickly and as easily as possible, with also staying within the rules. But sometimes those lines get blurred and players will break rules. Now for this video, I have picked out a handful of moments of players where they have broken the rules, either in daily challenges, eliminations, or the finals. Of course, I didn't pick out every single time a challenger broke a rule, and so when watching through this video, if you remember a moment that I don't mention in this video, please let me know down in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you have to say. But for now, let's start off with the moment that inspired this entire video, which was in season 41, Vets and New Threats, with the mini-final entitled Broken Dreams. The mini-final is a staple on the challenge, pushing players to their limits and testing them in a multitude of ways to see how ready they are for TJ's final. Unfortunately, it seems as though that quite a few players were not ready for specifically the eating portion. In Checkpoint 2, players had to eat onions, peppers, garlic cloves, and ginger, which were all too spicy and overwhelming to a lot of competitors to the point where they resorted to cheating. Players were chucking onions and peppers into bushes while the cameras were not looking. It sounds like there was not enough coverage or camera footage to capture every single person who cheated. So when TJ asked if anybody would like to confess and nobody said anything, he just decided to penalize everybody and say that the mini-final did not happen, which infuriated a lot of challenge audience members and some of the castmates. Talking about daily challenge wins that were nullified, let's go to season 34 War of the Worlds 2, episode 3's daily challenge called Paddlewheel Puzzle. This was a team-based challenge where players had to figure out combinations and you had to undo locks. This season in particular, the US team was absolutely dominant in daily challenges as the UK team just seemed out of sorts and unable to work with each other. That is until this episode where the UK team was working really efficiently and it seemed as though they had won. TJ announced them as the winners. There was a big celebration. That is until TJ pulled out the evidence that the players were breaking the locks instead of solving them. This resulted in them being disqualified and the US was given the win. Speaking of UK players being disqualified, let's go to season 35 Total Madness for the Flag Down Challenge. For this challenge, players will be harnessed onto a tank and they will be driven through a field where they're going to have to collect as many flags as possible. Early on in the challenge, you had Kyle and Rogan paired up together, and instead of fighting each other to grab the most flags, they decided to work together. As Rogan was collecting flags, he was handing them to Kyle so that he could put it in his own knapsack, trying to game the system and getting Kyle the for sure win. In the later rounds, a few other pairs actually took inspiration from Rogan and Kyle working together, where Jenny helped Nany and Nelson was helping Faysal. Upon a discussion by production, they decided that that was outside of the bounds of the rules.
But a lot of you were cheating.
And all the pairs that helped each other out were disqualified. Another major moment of challengers breaking the rules comes in season 28 Rivals 3, where you have the lapse of judgment. I would call it a mini final. We're in a pivotal moment in the challenge. Camila picked up a token thinking it was her and Tony's. As they were progressing their way through the mini final, it was discovered that the token that Camila had picked up was not theirs. It was instead Nate and Christina's, but in the moment, all Camila and Tony knew was the one that Camila had was not hers. But instead of mentioning it to production or putting it back where she found it, or just saying out loud that this is not our token, whoever's token this is yours, and setting it down on the ground, Camila threw it out of bounds, so whoever it was would definitively get last place, which is exactly what happened with Nate and Christina. They brought it up to TJ and production that their token was taken, and it was unfair that they were going to be sent directly to the elimination for somebody taking their token. Upon further review of the tapes, TJ made a house call stating that Nate and Christina was off the hook and Tony and Camila would be sent into the elimination instead for breaking the rules. In season 40, Aviv was disqualified in the tight quarters challenge for breaking a barrier and breaking the rules coming out of a different exit. The thing was that this was a complete accident. Aviv got lost in the tunnels. She came across a stick and what she says is some garbage. She decided to kick it out of the way, not thinking that that was put there by production to dissuade them from going that way, but she kicked all that stuff out of the way, pressed forward, and somehow looped back around to everyone standing there at the finish line, and she was declared disqualified and being sent directly to the elimination. Moving over to players breaking the rules in eliminations, let's go to Season 14, Inferno 3, where we have Timmy versus Abram in the Smash House elimination. We had the two main players of both teams, the Glue and the Heart, going head to head in a very physical elimination where they had to be the first to break all the glass panels around them to be declared the winner. Honestly, when thinking of these two players, it feels as though that this elimination was made for Abram and he would have it in the bag. However, it seemed as though that Timmy got the underdog win. Upon further review, somehow one of Timmy's glass panels fell from the top of the structure onto the ground and did not break, leading to Timmy to being disqualified and having to leave the game. Ever since watching this episode, I've desperately wanted to have like a challenge Mythbusters to determine if this was even possible or what is the likelihood of this kind of phenomenon happening, because it just seems so wild. But kind of like what I was talking about with Aviv, this was all a mistake. Timmy didn't want to break the rules. It just so happened that it happened that way. Now, staying with Inferno 3, earlier on in the season we had the two rookies of Jenn versus Rachel M. In this elimination, they had to use these giant Q-tips to try to push on plates on their opponent's structure to raise the platform they were standing on to push them off. The player to get best of 5 wins. Jenn, during the elimination, got a little too heated, and instead of going for the plates, she decided to go for Rachel's head. This was clearly against the rules and you were supposed to go only for the plates. Jenn was penalized and went down 2 points to nothing, but somehow made a huge comeback, able to win 3-2, and Rachel left in tears. This elimination between Jenn and Rachel feels very similar to what happened in the Duel 2 between Landon and Brad. In this very physical elimination right before the final, Brad and Landon were going to have to face off, having to go for each other's hook and then run over to their own station and clip it on. The best 2 out of 3 wins. Landon just got too overheated, too zealous, to the point where he wasn't going for Brad's hook, which was clearly stated by TJ. You're not here to wrestle, you're supposed to go for the hook. This led to Landon getting penalized and the point going to Brad. Unfortunately for Landon, Brad had a genius plan of taking Landon's circle, throwing it, and running and trying to clip it before Landon could get all settled and get his final point. Brad, who almost got called out for breaking the rules for holding on to Landon too long, put together a master plan and getting the win. This reminds me of another Brad elimination that had to go off perfectly to get him to win, and that was in Season 13, The Duel, where he was up against CT in the Push Me elimination. This was mostly a weight-based elimination where the heavier, bigger player will win 9 out of 10 times. And when TJ blew the horn, that's exactly what happened with Brad and CT. CT was mopping the floor with Brad, where Brad had to do a Hail Mary in trying to get CT to break the rules. The only real rule for this elimination was that you had to not rip the flag. You had to go for the clip and unclip it. When CT knelt down to try to get the flag, Brad was wiggling the log in hopes of making CT mess up and break the rules to get disqualified. And it worked. CT was so upset because this was the last elimination right before the final, and Brad did whatever he could to try to win this elimination. Brad got the idea because earlier on in the season, Svetlana had to face off against Beth in the same elimination where Beth was mopping the floor with Svetlana. Svetlana even gave up at one point. The players on the sideline coaxed her to just try. Svetlana got back on the log, started wiggling it again, and Beth ripped the flag. This was the first time that it happened, so production had to have a long discussion of what to do, and they decided to disqualify Beth. So when Brad had to face off against CT in the same elimination, and Brad was getting pushed way behind, he felt like he needed to do the same exact thing that Svetlana did, and it worked out to a T. Now, one more elimination in Season 13, The Duel, we had CT versus Evan in the Ascender elimination. There's one part in the Ascender elimination where you had to put a tanagram puzzle together. Evan was panicking. I mean, he was the one that called out CT and wanted to face him in the elimination, but when he was hit with instant regret, that changed everything. So to give himself a better chance in the elimination, he drew the puzzle on his arm. TJ called him out at the arena.
Evan comes walking up with a cheat sheet on his arm.
Production made him wipe the puzzle from his arm, and Evan lost the elimination fair and square. In Season 19 Fresh Meat 2, Katelynn sustained an injury in Episode 4's Daily Challenge. She had to go get medical attention and came back to the challenge house on crutches. The house decided to go with the quote-unquote easy vote and vote in Katelynn and Brennan to go into that week's exile. Thinking that they could not compete or be competitive whatsoever, Brandon decided to party it up the night before the exile. And in the next morning, he decided to start off the day with what he deemed a breakfast of champions. Later that morning, Katelynn, Brandon, CJ, and Sydney all made their way to the start of the exile to meet up with TJ, where TJ announces that Brandon broke a major rule of the challenge, that no player is able to compete when they have a drink before an athletic event or challenge or elimination. So instead of being disqualified by Katelynn's injury, they were disqualified for Brandon. Let's now jump to Season 24 Rivals 2, where we have Zach and Trey versus Leroy and Ty in the breaking through elimination. In this elimination, the players are going to have to break through each level of this structure and then get through a door and ring a bell. Leroy and Ty really shouldn't have been in this elimination in the first place. Most of the votes that they received to send them into elimination came from teams that were just trying to burn vote on them. So Leroy and Ty were kind of blindsided about being sent into elimination, which kind of messed with their heads and messed with their strategy. Zach and Trey came into this heated, and they used that anger to get them through this elimination and ring their bell. The arena was silent as nobody wanted Zach and Trey to come back into the game. And lucky for everyone, they didn't come back into the game. Going over the footage, TJ let them know that they broke the rules, that Zach actually did the first and second floor when they were supposed to swap out on every floor. Because they broke the rules, they were disqualified and had to leave the game. Now for some rules that were broken in the finals, let's go to Season 15, where one major rule was stated by TJ. The rule was that every single one of your team members had to cross the finish line for you to win. In the middle of the final, Big Easy went down and had to be taken to the hospital. The Vets team were majorly behind the Rookies team having to deal with this big ordeal, and they decided that they were going to continue forward. Why give up now? They pushed through and actually overtook the Rookies team at one point and won, or so they thought. While in the middle of celebrating, TJ walked over with a grim look on his face, restating the rule that he mentioned at the beginning of the final, that every single one of your team members had to cross the finish line for you to win. So the Vets team was disqualified. So once Eric was taken out of the game, the Vets had no chance of winning because they broke the rules. Another broken rule in a final, but wasn't as harsh as Season 15's, was in Season 34, where early on in the final, Team UK was trying to get past Team US as they were carrying their gurneys. Paul Lee was messing with the UK team, trying to get in their way every time they were trying to pass them. This led to CT getting frustrated and the CT train pushing Team US into a tree, breaking their gurney, and Team UK taking off. It was stated in the beginning of the final that no team could mess with the other team's gurney. So at a random point in the final, Team UK had to serve a time penalty, which did not matter whatsoever. They had such a big lead that even serving the time penalty, Team US couldn't make up the time. And finally, for a broken rule that is a big rumor, it's been mentioned more specifically by Sarah on her Brain Candy podcast at one point that Johnny Bananas broke the rules by taking PEDs to help him stay awake longer during the overnight portion in Rivals 3's final, so that way he would have more points over Sarah when they had to make the final decision on whether they wanted to keep the money for themselves or split it with their partners.
Crew searched his jacket and found out that he didn't have a prescription for it, and they fined him $3,000 for it.
Johnny throughout the years and on various podcasts would deny these rumors or allegations. So that's why I put it at the end of the video, because allegedly Johnny Bananas broke the rules in Rivals 3's final, but when it's all said and done, on paper it does not matter because he was able to get the win and keep the money all for himself. But that is it for this video of players breaking the rules, either intentionally or accidentally. What do you think about this list? Let me know down in the comment section below. Which moment of a player breaking the rules / cheating gets you upset, gets you frustrated? What do you think about the mantra of if you aren't cheating, you aren't trying? Do you agree with it? Do you not agree with it? And were there other moments of challengers that may have broken the rules or cheated that I didn't mention or highlight in this video but you thought of while watching this video? Please let me know the moment down in the comment section below. I want to hear what you have to say. And I want to give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to everyone who's watching this video up to this point. I'll be back very, very soon with more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.